Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts,
Arch-Elector George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of Red Country, Joe's third standalone and the next First Law entry, and we continue by covering The Stolen and Conscience and the Cockrot. So let's get started.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, we love thee.
So we want to thank you, the audience, for your continued support, your continued devotion.
Thank you.
George, tell us about the spike the other day.
Yes, yesterday, as of the 29th of May, just had random 200 listens, downloads. So all of you people that are currently catching up throughout the series have just decided to listen on Thursday of all days, which is wonderful. This is great. That ticks up our downloads a little
It's
bit.
a boost to our numbers.
A boost to our ego. You know, this is every listen that you get is an extra tick to our ego, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we love it. We love it. I wonder what was different. I think the one thing that was different this week, Georgie boy, is we uploaded that visual soundbite to our social medias.
You mean I uploaded that visual soundbite as well?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Yes, I did.
All right, rude. Anyway, you uploaded it like on Sunday or Monday, I think. Instead of the usual like Wednesday, Thursday. Maybe that had something to do with it, you think?
Maybe Monday is a good day. Monday is a good day to get time for the people to settle in and get used to the fact that they're going to be listening to the Circle of the World podcast.
Yeah, they have to kind of talk to themselves.
Mental preparation.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and also, we have come to our senses, and we basically just did the easy way of uploading all of our episodes to the YouTube.
Which I suggested about a year ago, and Jeff has been arguing with me for about a year about it. So,
well,
I apologize, folks. George is very combative today.
Yeah,
and you will be hearing some cat fighting.
I'm just trying to make good content here. Let's go. Yeah, so all of the episodes for the Circle of the World podcast are up on YouTube now. Which, to be fair, if you're listening to this, you probably don't care about because you haven't been listening on YouTube anyway.
Right.
Hey, but for your convenience, it is on YouTube.
It is on YouTube's now.
Which means if you have YouTube Premium, which we're not sponsored by, but I happen to use, you can download our podcast episodes while you're traveling. What a great feature. You can also do that on Spotify, which I also have a premium of.
And also, if you want access to all of this premium banter, you can join us on the Discord if you email us at circleoftheworldpodcast@gmail.com.
Yep, or reach out to us on any of our social media platforms, and we will provide you with that link to join the Discord, where we, just shit on each other and on everything. It's a great time. It really is. So we'll move on to our next segment, which is our community interaction segment. And, I think at this time now, Sir Spaceman has the memeing every chapter up and running, right?
Yep, absolutely. Go on House of the Meme Maker right now and claim your chapters. This is the call to arms. Go on, guys.
Call to arms. Come into Reddit, from which we are banned, and join in on the tomfoolery, the shit posting, and just complete degeneracy.
And to be fair, we will be, at least I will be contributing a couple of chapters, not under our name, and I won't say who's going to upload them, and they won't either. So just so that they don't get banned just for being associated with us degenerates,
And I make this proclamation, Reddit, we shall return, and you cannot stop us.
Well, I'm not a big fan of that hand gesture you're making there, Jeff.
It's a little Elon Musky.
It's a little Germanic in nature. It was an accident, man. I was raising my arm up high. It's
a little space sexy,
Oh my God, space sexy. I'm fucking gonna kill myself.
I mean, you are Portuguese. Those guys were fascists until about 40 years ago, so that makes sense.
Hey.
It's true.
Can't help it. It's ingrained in you. There's nothing you could have ever done.
The government was, all right, not the people. And the people, we took them down with carnations. So, fuck you, all right?
Killed him with flowers. It's good.
Exactly, baby. We did the Michael Jackson thing where he just like puts the rifle down with his fingers. That's exactly what we did, apparently. Oh, how far we've fallen. Anyway, so let's move on to our first chapter read through, which is The Stolen. Now, I do want to point out that I know at the end of last episode, we said we were doing 3 chapters, but you know us, we're pretty ambitious. And then we realized that Conscious and the Conqueror has a lot to, that we should
There's a lot of cock.
A lot of
Conthus and the Cockroach.
Yeah,
Conthus?
Conthus
No,
and the
he's a
Conqueror.
conscious.
And so we decided we're gonna do 2, and it kind of makes sense. This first chapter is ending this first part, and the next chapter begins the next part, and synergy, right? All that jazz.
And again, we had a bit of a bad timing here because obviously the last chapter is meant to lead into this chapter immediately, if you're reading it that way.
Mhm.
Because you get to the end of the last chapter and Gregor Cantless is named, and we know where the children are being taken and why.
Yeah.
And then obviously we get Rose's perspective immediately, and this is just what it goes into here.
Yep. And so, yeah, exactly. The Stolen kind of basically starts, it's Rose's perspective. Now, if you remember, folks, if you are devoted listeners and you pay attention to the source material, you know that Rose is one of Shy's siblings, the older sister. I think is about 10 or 11 at this time, right?
She's got to be 10 because she specifically states in this chapter that none of the children are older than 10.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I was gonna question your accuracy when it comes to timelines and ages, just because you've been kind of failing in that regard. But I appreciate it's correct. It's right in front of me, so therefore I don't really need to take your word for it.
I'm so glad that you have the faith and love in our relationship.
So sorry. Anyway, so Ro and Pitt are with the crew of children that have been kidnapped. Truly kidnapped by Gregor Cantless and his merry band of mates. We have a northern man named Blackpoint who doesn't have his 2 front teeth but laughs at everything, right? We have somebody named...
I feel like he might be called Blackpoint because his teeth were black at some point.
Interesting. Okay.
And then they fell out,
Okay, you know what?
Okay,
That's an excellent point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Good.
You're
All
genius.
right. Yeah.
As we know, the Northmen don't have like hardcore names. They're all like jokey. They're all like comedic.
Good
names.
point.
Right. Very true. Mm-hmm. And so there was apparently a point in time where they were all 21, right? 21 kids, until one kid, his name was Care, had tried to run, and Blackpoint came back from chasing him, and Blackpoint was all bloody. So looks like Care is that kid that Shy and Lamb and Leaf ran into on their way to the tavern, which was like
yeah. He's not a character spot because he's not a character, but poor kid. That sucks.
Yeah, poor kid. And then there's also a person with them called B, who was all right, even if she did have scars on her arm from surviving the pox, which it's like, all right, Ro, we don't need to judge her for that. Jeez, judge her for the kidnapping, not the pox.
Judge her for being in an abusive relationship. What a
And aiding and abetting kidnappers as well.
Right.
That's also bad.
Yeah. So she's the one comforting the kids whenever they're distressed, which I imagine is all the time because they're kidnapped. And she was just as scared as Greg of Cantless as the kids, apparently, because he would hit her from time to time, and then she would make excuses for him. So this is that classic, abusive relationship, I guess.
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
I don't think
maybe they might call it Cantless syndrome in this universe.
But this doesn't seem like that. This seems like straight up abuse.
Yeah, I totally agree at that point.
Yeah, straight up abuse.
But then it also says that she just makes excuses for him.
Right.
That's exactly what somebody in an abusive relationship
exactly
does.
the hallmarks of an abusive relationship. Yeah. Sure. Yep. Sure. He is combative. You see this, Harrison? Jesus. All right.
I told you.
Good Lord. Anyway.
I try to warn you, folks.
Yeah. So the thing, Ro kind of describes Gregor Cantless as nothing in him worth a damn. He rides up front with his fancy tailored clothes like he's some big man. instead of a child thief and murderer and lowest of the low, aiming him to make himself look special by gathering even lower scum about him for a backdrop, which is nice. I like that. He'd get a great big fire built at night because he likes to watch things burn, and he'd drink and drink, and then he'd complain about how life isn't fair and how he had been tricked out of an inheritance by a banker and how things never seem to go his way. And here,
go ahead.
We just stop right there. It says, Bias says his fingers in many pies.
I was just going to say, I was like, I bet that banker's from Valent and Balk.
Yeah, guaranteed. Guaranteed from Valent and Balk.
Absolutely. Sounds just like their MO, right? And so when they get to like a river, Ro at some point asks him like, where are they going? And he just says upstream. And so apparently there's like a keel boat, and that's where they get on, right? And they get on the river, they go upstream, and this is really basically that's just kind of it, right? They're just going.
Yeah,
it's a few days on the boat, and then they see something burning off.
Ro is almost raped at one point, which is awful.
All right, hold on. Jesus Christ, we don't just toss that in there. We got to do it.
That is exactly what she says.
Yeah, but we got to do this delicately. Jesus Christ, man. All right, hold on. Fuck. So, yeah, they're on the boat for a few days. They see something burning far across, and the boatman's kind of like, "Hey, man, I don't know if we should keep going because there's ghosts in the area." And Greg is all sinister. He goes, "There's more to worry about closer at hand." And then boatman's just like, "All right, you know what? I'm just gonna whatever. I'm not gonna ask about these kids. I'm not gonna ask about what the fuck we're doing here." And then apparently that same evening, one of the men of the posse, the mob, the kidnapping crew,
the scum,
shook Ro awake while she was sleeping. Shook her awake and basically grabbed her arm and talked about how that
it's the one I used to know.
How Ro reminded him of someone, and it was about to get real disgusting and dark, but then Pitt had hit him as hard as he could, and B woke and screamed, and then Cantless came, dragged the man away, and then Black Point kicked him until he stopped moving and tossed him in the river. So basically
Cantless is a hero.
But then also the point is that they're not to mess with the goods.
Yeah.
Right. Even though Black Point
the kids are property.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're protecting them because they are morally superior or anything like that. They're just
right. It's just about money.
They want them spoiled for whoever they bring them to.
Yeah, they go full meats back on the menu scene. That's what this is.
Yeah. So yeah, I wonder what I guess didn't apply to that one kid that Black Point killed, Care, but whatever. And at some point,
he tried to run away. That's completely different.
Also, if you think of it, that's true. That stupid kid. But I don't know why this little detail, of Pitt hitting him, that's so sweet to me. I know it's a little minor detail, and of course he does. He's her brother, but the fact that he's like, "Yo, what the fuck?" Ah! It's so sweet, and also it fits in line with his character. He is we don't, to be honest, we don't get a lot of characterization out of him, but he is loyal, more loyal than most people, and I think it's a very small characterization that's already shown here. I think it's very cool.
Yeah.
And you know what? We don't get a lot of young children from Joe.
No,
at all throughout the trilogy or any of the series at all, apart from these two. And it's a very good depiction, again, as you say, of sibling loyalty, and they've been kidnapped, and he just wants to protect his big sister, and it's lovely, isn't it?
It's sweet.
It is.
Very sweet.
It is. And Cantless, like what George and Harrison was saying, basically yells at everyone that, don't touch a hair on the head of the kids because that'd be costing him money, and no bastard would be costing him money. You could bet on that. And Ro took this opportunity because she's hot, she's upset. She just burst out saying that my sister's following. You can bet on that if you want to bet. And Cantless basically tells her the past is gone, like to that water flowing by, which is similar to leaves on the water. He says, "You got no sister now. No one's following." And then, he walks away, and Pitt comes up to her and is like, hey, is it true? Is no one following? And Rose like, no, Shy is following. Don't you best believe it.
But she wishes that maybe she isn't, because she knows that if she comes after them, she's just going to get shot through with arrows too. Which is a really mature kind of standpoint for a kid as well.
Yeah, 10 years old, right?
Yeah,
Half
okay.
wishing.
I mean, you gotta bear in mind that these kids have literally seen Gully, who they've probably known most of their lives, being murdered in front of them.
Yeah.
Which is nothing that no child should ever see, ever.
No, of course not. But it's the Wild West, and the Wild West is cruel. It reminds me a lot of that. Yeah, it reminds me of that movie Hostels, if you've seen it. Also, she ends the chapter with, I thought was kind of an interesting juxtaposition here. She does wish, though, that Lamb was with him, because he could have smiled and said, it's all right, don't worry none, like he did when there was a storm and she couldn't sleep. That would have been fine. Little do you know, Ro, what Lamb can do.
Lamb is
little did she know that he is the storm in the high places. He is the wrath of the great. Okay.
Yes, Lamb has done far, far worse than this, Ro.
But yeah. I do think it, again, very sweet, a child's point of view chapter. Also, she is from this chapter, she's a very intelligent girl for being 10 years old. And I don't think that's Joe being like, oh, he doesn't know how to write a kid. I don't think that's it at all. I think he just is purposely writing her this way. But I think it's so sweet that, even she, after we get this reminder that what Lamb is, who he is, right? After that, we get this reminder that he's still the sweet man, like Joe is doing such a good job at being like, oh, the bloody nine. You like that, guys? You like that? But also remember, he's more than that.
He's a nice person. So, with that chapter ending, boys, how do you rate it?
It's interesting because this is a very unique chapter from Joe. We very rarely get one-off POV pure chapters. And the fact that we're getting an update and it's very, very tense, because now how is this going to go? Like, we know that Shy and Lamb are following, right, but we also know how tense and precarious this situation is. And it sets that up very, very well. And like you said, Harrison, or Jeff, I can't remember. Ro is a very intelligent person who is just getting to grips with this. I reckon probably a 7.
Oh, okay. Harrison?
I'm gonna give it a 6. Same reasons you said. It is very small, and it's just kind of filling in a gap. We know that they're alive. It's kind of giving us that understanding and adding just a little bit of mystery where they're taking them, and giving characterization for characters who normally in a story like this wouldn't really get characterization. And we get a few more chapters like this, so I think a 6 is appropriate for this one, for me.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a 4 just because it's so short. Not to speak to like the quality of the chapter, obviously. I just think it's like 3 pages, and we get kind of like a brief news bulletin as to the status of Ro and Pitt and what's going on. And it's like, okay, they're here. Yeah. This is where they're at. And it's like, all right, cool. Thanks for that. Now, as George, illustrated, it is very precarious, very tense. We know now why. I mean, Lamb and Shy kind of put it together as to why that kid got killed, because he ran away. We get that confirmation. We know who did it. Black Point. Yeah, and we see that Gregor Cantless is a piece of shit. All around.
It's just not fair. Life's not fair.
No, it's not.
Poor guy, he's just life's so tough.
Yeah, poor guy, right. So, all right, cool. Now we'll move on to our next segment, which is our best meme of the week. Georgia boy, that's you. Take it away.
I really don't understand this meme, I've got to say. This is Darth Vader is my wife, who we've had before on the meme of the week.
Yes, it's obviously he's more intelligent than us. That's the only explanation.
Right, this is obviously some kind of impressionistic kind of stuff going on here. I just don't understand it.
Me neither.
Yeah, does somebody else want to explain this?
Yeah. If anyone listens to the podcast, please look at the meme of the week. George can illustrate. Talk about it. George.
So we've got SpongeBob handing the seed to Baez, and this is Pharaoh handing the seed to Baez, and then the seed results is a big fish. And then Glocter is looking in his rear view mirror.
That's fucking hilarious. Again,
as I should probably print this out and put it on the wall somewhere so I can look at it every day and try and understand what it means.
Like a detective.
Clearly, it means something.
Listen, it was the highest. You said it was the most upvoted meme on the Discord. I mean, on the Reddit.
Yeah.
So they know
only 20. Only 20 though. 20 people understand something that I don't.
Yeah,
which is good. That's great.
Yeah, just please.
What does it mean, Jeff?
I don't know. I said me or Heston don't know either.
I don't know. You see, I had the unfortunate upbringing of not being allowed to watch SpongeBob because of the SpongeBob things, right? So I have got no clue what the fuck this means, but I'm sure it's hilarious. So well done, sir. You are so highbrow, high brain of a memer that we can't even understand it.
Exactly.
We're just old.
This is the first time on the Circle of the World podcast that we've been absolutely, completely flabbergasted. We just do not understand what the fuck is going on here. Maybe we are getting old. I mean, Harrison's 23, 25 now?
Jesus, 26, dog. We're
26 now. All right, Jesus. I'm nearly 30. Jeffy, you 60 now.
Back you.
We're old. Somebody email us at Circle of the World podcast.
Get the teens on the podcast. Does someone help?
Did someone beep us on our pager?
Ask me, bitch.
I need a telegram stat.
So yeah, thank you very much, Darth Vader, as my waifu for the headache.
Yeah, please hit us up, man. I want to know. I didn't catch this episode of SpongeBob, so I don't know. But with that in mind, thank you for that again. Darth Vader is my wife. Is that what you said?
Waifu.
Naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Darth Vader is my waifu. Thank you for that. And we'll move on to our second and final chapter read-through, which is Conthus and the Cockthroat. So
before that, though, Jeff, do you want to do the interregnum, the part 2, the fellowship? That's a good quote.
Oh shit! All right, let me start that over.
Long one too.
Sorry.
I'll do it if you like.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
What a wild life! What a fresh kind of existence! But the discomforts. By Henry Wadsworth Longfellow.
Nice.
Tell us a little bit about that gentleman. Why don't you, George?
So Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was So Henry Wadsworth Longfellow is one of the original American authors. One of the first people to write the Tales of Paul Revere.
Mm-hmm.
And also one of the first Americans to translate the Divine Comedy. So he's one of the first proper intellectual authors that were identified as American.
Oh, okay.
Hey, audience, if you didn't know, I apologize once again. All American authors are
intelligent, baby. It's America.
Are extremely intelligent.
But of course, this is the time where we were discovering in quotes the world where people already lived and moving into it.
It's okay. Let your colonizer take over there, sure.
Bitch, that was you, not me. Anyway, it's important for the book because obviously this is the theme of the book.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Pay attention to this theme. So we'll move on now to the chapter read through. Guys, like I said, Conthus and the Cockthroat. And so we start. It's obviously Temple's perspective. And well, folks, a lot happens in this chapter. We start off by Temple coming upon Sufine while Sufine is praying. And I like how Sufine is sarcastic. He's like, no, I'm kneeling here with my eyes closed, cooking porridge. Yes, I'm praying. God damn it! And he's like, "Want to join me, Temple?" And Temple goes, "I don't believe in God. Remember? Can you honestly say he ever raised a finger to help you?" They do the
And I
usual.
like this. I love the quote that you don't have to like God to believe in him.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he does say also that he knows he's past help anyway. And when Temple asks him, well, what does he pray for then? Safine just straight up says, I pray for you, brother. You look as if you need it. And Temple, he doesn't respond in a negative way here, right? He says that he's been feeling like a little jumpy. If he ever, he asks Safine if he ever feels that there's like a dreadful weight hanging over him, that it might fall at any moment and you just don't know how to get out from under it. And I like how... Go ahead.
If you've studied some philosophy, this is called the sword of Damocles.
Mm-hmm.
So it means literally that you feel like the sword is hanging over you and can fall at any time.
Yeah, and I like how Safine goes, well, but you do know how to get out from under it. And then they kind of pause, and then Temple goes, oh, no. And this is where Safine's like, the old man listens to you. And Temple says, I tried. He didn't want to hear. And he's like, perhaps you didn't try hard enough. The easy way leads nowhere. And Temple is kind of just saying, fuck this. No. I'm just a lawyer. I never claimed to be a righteous man. And I like how Safine says, no righteous man does.
Oh my God. He's bars, dude. Jesus.
And, Temple kind of goes with the whole like Joubert route. He goes, if God wants to stop, let him stop it. Isn't he all powerful? And I like how Safine he calls in the distance. He's like, never leave to God what you can do yourself. It's like, that's a great line. That's a great line.
That convinces Temple, doesn't it? Because he's just like, oh, fuck it.
And he's like starting to sound like Kadia too and everything. But it doesn't even start to convince Temple yet. Temple's still like, oh, fuck. So he walks away. He walks towards the fortified wagon where Casca is holding court with his band of officers, the mercenaries, and Inquisitor Lorson's there and everything. And I like this little tidbit where Casca is switching from Styrian to Common Tongue, and then also gesturing for those that don't speak any of those languages. And
it's a very good detail because of course he is, because he's having to give orders. And it also shows that, like, he is, he's just that charismatic. It's just a little tiny detail to be like, he knows his stuff.
Just that considerate.
Exactly. This is all that Casca does. Casca just is charismatic. And that's it. He just convinces people to do things.
That's true.
Yeah. And so he's going over, with the officers, he's going over the plan of attack. Because they're going to attack Averstock. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, boys. But isn't Averstock that little town where Lamb kind of just, visited his wrath upon just about a chapter or two ago?
Yes, they were just visited by the storm in the high places.
Is it ever actually named as Averstock?
I think it is. I think it is.
Okay.
The last... I don't think it is, but it's implied. And,
it's
considering...
It is Averstock. I just checked.
Yeah. It's also more than implied.
These poor folk just dealt with the psychotic nine-fingered Northmen tearing up their favorite tavern, right?
Yes.
And now they're gonna have to deal with this. So going over the plan, and then Lorson kind of says, "Let no one escape. Everyone must be examined." And then Casca goes, of course, yes, absolutely. And all plunder declared, assessed, and properly noted so that it may be divided according to the rule of quarters. Any questions? And then I like how Safine, he shows up out of nowhere, and he just says, how many men will Inquisitor Lorson torture to death today? And Temple and a few other people kind of just like stared at Safine like open mouth, like, and then Casca just kind of, he goes on as if he didn't hear him. He goes, I was thinking of questions relating to our tactics. But Lorson, to his credit, answers. Lorson goes, as many as it is necessary. Do you think that I revel in this? The world is a gray place. A place of half-truths, of half-wrongs, and half-rights. Yet there are things worth fighting for, and they must be pursued with all our vigor and commitment. Half measures achieve nothing.
And I find that quite interesting, because is this just Joe talking to us here?
Yeah, maybe, but maybe.
But in the sense that this is the way that he's gone with his fantasy. It's not all good versus evil. It is a gray area.
Right. Well, Safine isn't having any of that. He's disregarding Temple, pulling on his sleeve and everything. He's like, and he says, "What if there are no rebels down there? What if you're wrong?"
Hey, I have a. Sorry, Jeff. I'm sorry. I just have a quick note. You said that, George, and made me think about that some more. I like Lorson saying that. I'm not sure it's exactly him speaking to it. I do like the reinforce all of these characters that we saw the POV of. Like their characters are reinforced, and it's so cool that we had the POV in the last chapter with this crew, where we could see like all their beliefs and stuff. So Lorson, again, I mean, he is the second best man in the company here. He's like, the world is gray. This is what it is. But it's interesting. He has got the right perspective, but not the right means for dealing with it. Right? He's like, so because the world is world of gray, we have to kill everything, right? We have to. This is the absolute law. Like this is the order. I've chosen this path, and that means my path is right. He has the same ideology as Joubert, just with the law.
I mean, a hammer sees every problem as a nail, right?
Yes, exactly. And he is that, and so. But we, if we hadn't gotten that perspective, I think that some people would see Lorson as, like, he's just like, oh, sure, you believe that, but he genuinely does believe that. What a maniac!
If only Lawson had been given the tools to explore the world in a better way, If only we all could.
And to his credit, Lorson says, sometimes I am going to be wrong, and courage lies in bearing the cost. We all have our regrets, but not all of us can afford to be crippled by them. So basically, he says like the classic line, sometimes the lesser evil is the greater good. And a man of principle must make hard choices and suffer the consequences, or you can sit and cry over how unfair it all is. Which is Theo, sorry.
The ends justify the means, right? Oh, that's not a good line.
This kind of guy. You see this? So, Temple kind of tries to diffuse the tension with a bit of a joke by saying, "Oh, well, it works for me," but Safine isn't having it, right? He says it's not going to work for me, and he gathers his courage and he looks at Casca. He says, "General Casca, I want to go down into Averstock." And Casca's like, well, yeah, so do we all. Didn't you hear what I just said earlier? Going over the plan? And he goes, no, I want to go before the attack. To talk to the townsfolk, to give them a chance to surrender any rebels. And Temple's like, oh my God, no.
He's just trying to pull him away. Like, no, don't.
And Safine is like, to avoid what happened in Square Deal. And Casca was taken aback. He goes, I thought we were remarkably well behaved in Square Deal. A company of kittens could have been no gentler. Would you not say so, Swarbrick? And Swarbrick just kind of goes, admirable restraint. Oh God. And
I love Swarbrick throughout this. He's just like absolutely out of his depth and just bringing the best of his vocabulary to bear. Just like, yeah, no, this is great. This is wonderful.
This is cool. This is totally cool. And then, Safine points out that this is a poor ass town. They have nothing worth taking. Dimbick is like, you don't know that until you look. Jesus Christ, these guys are eager. And he begs, and he's begging Casca at this point to let him go. He's praying, and I like how Joubert chimes in. He says, "Prayer is arrogance, the hope of man to change the will of God, but God's plan is set, and His words already spoken." And Safine snaps.
Brother, get a load of this guy.
My favorite line in the series ever is just here. So Safine just goes, "Fuck him then," and then Joubert says, "My friend,
Wait, he doesn't say my friend.
Will find." Sorry.
Oh,
you will find it is God who does the fucking.
That's great.
It's a great line. But I think it speaks also how like frustrated and desperate Safine is when he snaps like that. And Casca kind of just he says like, you sound determined to Safine, and Safine agrees, and he echoes what Lorson just said. He says a man of principle must make hard choices and suffer the consequences. And I like how
I love how Pacey does that as well, because he does it so sarcastically. Like he's just Sufin is standing up in front of all of these big dudes, and yeah. I'm at the end of my rope. I cannot watch any of this shit go on any longer, and go fuck yourselves.
Yeah,
Sufin, my man.
It does make you wonder though. Why did Safine wait till now to do this? Just like with Temple, right? He's been with him now for not the same amount of time, but
well, everybody has a limit.
Yeah,
somebody who's been fighting for whatever. None of us have ever fought. Really,
I got
have
you.
we?
I was trying to imply that it's foreshadowing, but I was being very ambiguous. That's my bad.
It's all good. It's all good. No, but like George was saying, everyone has a limit. I mean, I've been in fights, but I haven't pillaged a village. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but none of us have been in war.
Yeah, exactly. And like, look, Beck. If we remember the heroes, Beck hit his limit real early. 3 days in, he's like, "I'm done." Others, keep going, despite all the trauma and the hardship. So just it varies. And Casca doesn't agree to this right away. He says, "If I agree to this, what then? Is your conscience gonna follow us all across the fucking near country?" And but Lorson is like, "Are you really considering this?" And he goes, "Yeah, I am. I mean, the town's surrounded. No one's going anywhere. Maybe this can make our lives a little easier." And then he looks at Temple. Casca looks at Temple, and he says, "What do you think?" And Temple goes, "Well, me?" And he goes, "I am looking at you and using your name. Yes." And Temple is like, he's like, "Fuck me." He stopped making hard choices because he always made the wrong ones. 30 years of scraping through the poverty and fear. He looked at, from Safine to Casca to Lorson and back. And he's over here just thinking, like, where was the greatest profit? Where was the least danger? Who was actually right? It's difficult to pick the easy way from this. And because he's always, like, now he's just always been about the easy way for, a good long time, imagine. And then Casca
And
goes,
you know what? Being without the information that we have now, it's easy for us as learned people in the 21st century, looking at all of this with all of the knowledge that we have, to go, oh yeah, no, clearly Temple is in the right here by saying that we need to be peaceful.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say that when Temple has been fucked over his entire life like he has. And then to make that decision is quite a brave thing, I think.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And at this point, Temple's kind of forced into this because Casca just declares that the man of conscience and the man of doubts, God help us indeed, you have 1 hour. And I like how Lorson's like, I must protest. And Casca goes, if you must, you must, but I won't be able to hear you with all this noise. And Lorson goes, what noise? And Casca does the very, very, very cliche trope of sticking his fingers in his ears and going, lolly, 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 la, la, la.
But it's so Casca. That is exactly what Casca would do.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, I do want
also, I would not trust Casca to know what an hour is.
I mean, he has to know.
It might come up later.
I see what you're saying. I do want to point out that earlier when he was, questioning Safine if his conscience is going to be pricking them all across the near country, this is where we get the title of this chapter. He goes, conscience can be painful, but so can the cockrot. A grown-up should suffer his afflictions privately and not allow them to become an inconvenience for friends and colleagues. And then Lorson is where he quips, where he says, conscience and the cockrot are hardly equivalent. And Casca goes,
and
indeed.
Casca says, the cockrot is hardly fatal.
Funny. So anyway, Temple follows Safine down as Safine is making his way to the town. And Temple is snapping. He's like, have you gone mad? What are you going to do? Safine says, no, I've gone sane and I'm going to talk to them. Whoever will listen. And I like how Temple says, "You're not going to put the world right with talk." And Safine counters by saying, "And what are you going to use? Fire and sword? Papers of engagement?" And Temple doesn't say anything to that, but they do pass some Royal Scouts, and Burmy is one of them. And Burmy is I guess part of the crew, the three homies, the three musketeers, if we remember from earlier in the book.
Yeah.
And he's like questioning, like he's looking at them with the questioning looks, like, what the hell's going on? What's he up to? And Temple goes, I think he's following his conscience. And I like how Burmy goes, conscience is a shitty navigator. And so
there's a lot of good lines in this between like Safine and Casca and Temple all being like, no, yeah. They like say one line, they're like, yeah, but this. They're like, well, what about this? Yeah, but this. Like, it's always like there's always a catch-22 with every phrase inside this chapter. There's never like an up, so it's never just like a here's a matter-of-fact thing. It's all gray, you know, and only the absolute answer is what oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
exactly. And you know, we're about to see the results of what happens when somebody does what they think is right.
Yeah. Well, true. I mean, there's a lot that happens here.
Never
right?
do what you think.
So
Never do anything right. That's the lesson.
So, with Temple constantly pestering Safine about, this decision making, Safine says to him to go back, that this is not the easy way. Temple's like, that I fucking realize. We should both go back. And Safine just says no. And Temple goes, well, then I'm coming. Safine says, good. And then
He's
Temple
what?
goes, fuck. Yes, he's coming, all right. And I like how Temple asks him, well, what's your plan then? And Safine goes, well, I got part of a plan. And so they make it to Abercrombie, right? And it's we've been here before. It's a piss poor town. And it reminds Temple actually of the sun-baked lower city of Dagaska, right? Or the seething slums of Styria. The hard scrabble villages of the near country. Every nation was rich in its own way, but poor in the same.
I love how the first thing he sees is this woman skinning a carcass, and he can't tell what animal it is because it's all just so rotten. It's just like, oh, probably don't want to be eating that.
Yeah, they walk past some people, like a long-haired ancient. They watch Temple and Safine with suspicion. A dog is barking. Shutters are closing.
Again, very Western.
Very Western. Love it. Love it. So they find that the heart of Abercrombie is the tavern, essentially. And there's a pair of people in there, a farmer and his son, bony and red-haired, both of them. There's a tragic fellow decked in fraying ribbons, bent over a cup. He took him for a traveling bard, and he hoped he specialized in sad songs because the sight of him was enough to bring on tears.
This town is the most ramshackle town that Joe's ever written. It's really like the most decrepit, just sad part. But I really like this line though that Temple has whenever they are discussing like the way this how sad the town looks, like in his head. He says all cities have their own beauty when it comes to money or whatever, but all cities are the same when they're poor. And I think that's a really, really, really good line.
So, and then there's a woman cooking over a fire who just looks at them sourly, but that's about it. And there is the tavern keep. We remember him. He's carefully wiping cups with a rag, which is exactly what he was doing last time we saw him. And
it's good to have a routine.
Yeah, and so
if you've ever been a bartender, you know that's exactly what it is.
That's exactly
You're just constantly wiping glasses.
Yeah,
very true.
So they walk up to the barkeep, and he asks him, "What can I get you?" And Safine just straight up says, "There are some 400 mercenaries surrounding your town with every intention of attacking." There was a pregnant pause, heavily pregnant, and I like how this.
Using that term.
And I like how the bartender says, "This hasn't been my best week, so I'm not in the mood for jokes."
And by the way, the bar is covered like in old stained blood and has a crack down the middle of it. I wonder how that got there.
Yeah, a fresh split down its length and a large stain worked into the grain that looked unpleasantly like blood.
Again, it keeps up with the continuity that the company is just behind Shia Lamb
Yes,
Yeah.
very
by
much.
a week or so.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think that'd
maybe
be
not
about
even
right.
that.
Maybe a
Yeah.
few days. We'll see. And then and then Temple, basically Safine says they are the company of the gracious hand. That's not a joke. Led by Nkomo Casca, the infamous mercenary, and they've been employed by His Majesty's Inquisition to root out rebels in the near country. So unless they receive your fullest cooperation, your bad week will get a great deal worse. And now the bartender, they have his attention now. They had the attention of everybody in the tavern. And then the farmer kind of basically leaned against the counter and he goes, and if there are rebels in town, and he rolls up his sleeve and there's tattoos on his forearm. Freedom,
Oh shit! Another
liberty,
one.
justice. There we
These
go.
fucking, they're like roaches. They're everywhere in these damn bars.
But I like how Temple points out, he goes, here's the scourge of the mighty Union, Lorson's insidious enemy, the terrifying rebel in the flesh. And Temple looked into his eyes. If this was the face of evil, it was a haggard one. It was like, yeah,
Well, you ought to bear in mind, the rebels that are left. We've just heard about a rebellion and a big put down of a rebellion. So the ones that are left are the ones that couldn't go and fight.
Yep.
So it's just all the old fuckers that are just left to kind of mind the bar,
Yeah. And and so Safine takes this opportunity, to just he's careful with his words, right? He says that they have less than an hour to surrender. He's answering his question if there are rebels, and spare the people of this town bloodshed. So the farmer smiles and he goes, I could take you to Sheol. He can choose what to believe.
Shield.
And Safine agrees.
Well, this is clearly the leader of the town.
Yeah, I guess so.
No,
Leader
right.
of the rebels in this area.
Yeah, and Safine agrees. Temple's like, fuck, and tells them that they'll have to give up their weapons. And Temple goes,
I like how Temple gets out his knife. It's only a little one, though.
I like what I like even better.
Such a good line.
What I like even better is right before that, he goes, oh, all right, hold on. I'm not going to give you my knife or whatever, my weapons, until he hears, hand them over. And the woman that's cooking is pointing a loaded flatbow out of nowhere at them.
Dude, Joe loves having people produce
Loaded
crossbows.
flatbows.
Fucking flatbows everywhere.
Flatbows out of nowhere.
Fucking every single book has somebody producing a flatbow. Every single book. I swear to God. It's ridiculous. It's
so
great
funny.
though. I love it.
And then I like how he goes, I am convinced.
But I like he literally goes, with a great respect, I'm not convinced. And then he sees the flatbow and it's like, I am convinced.
Yeah. And then, so, they don't make any sudden moves and, follow me. So they go towards where basically the old man that they saw out on the street is hanging out there, the one that was like whittling a stick, and he has a sword. And so he asked the farmer, like, what's going on here? And he says, I caught these two at the inn. And Temple's like, caught? We walked in and asked for you.
Shut up.
Shut up.
And so he goes, all right, everybody shut up. I'm Sheol. I speak for the rebels hereabouts.
And he's properly like coughing up his lungs. Like,
yeah. And apparently there were more than 4, but it's really just 4 now at this point. And so they get into it where he tells them, like, yeah, they're surrounded apparently. And Sheol's like, look, you have to agree, it's kind of a far-fetched story. And this is where Temple comes in. He's like, all right, I'm giving him my most earnest look. And he looks at Sheol and he says, my friend is telling you the truth. Come with us and we could save lives. The farmer thinks that they're lying. There's no one up there. And then Temple just says, why would we come here just to lie? What will we gain? And then Sheol asks him, well, why do it at all? And Temple, he answers honestly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
He says, well, we got sick of not doing it. And that's
that's a fucking hard line.
Yeah,
that's a hard
good line.
And
what a line that everybody kind of relates to, that at some point you just have to do what you don't want to do. And Sheol relates to that until
Feels like it's better to do it than live with a fear that I heard some Northman say at one point. He doesn't say that.
Yeah. I mean, so then Shield's actually considering it. And he says, if you're telling the truth and we give up, what then? And then Temple's like, oh, too much truth it can be a mistake. So he goes, the people of Averstock will be spared. That I promise you. So it seems like he's considering it.
What a great deal.
Yeah, it's well, as good as they might get. And so it looks like Shield's considering it. And then he opens his mouth to speak until he kind of has like a puzzled look over his face, frowning over Temple's shoulders. And Temple turns to follow his gaze and sees basically a bunch of riders coming down the slope. And Temple's like, fuck, no. And Safine hisses, he says, Temple. And Shield's like, you bastards. And Temple goes, no. And he heard grunting in his ear, and when Temple turned to tell Safine this was hardly the time, he saw his friend and Denard lurching about in a snarling embrace, and he stared at them with an open mouth. And Joe uses this next line a couple times. He says they should have had an hour.
Yeah.
Again, who the fuck trusts Costco to know what an hour is?
Right.
Oh, even then, it's been maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. You know, this whole conversation and everything like that, maybe 20, 25 minutes.
George, even then, what? He fucking does it on purpose.
Who the fuck nobody has a clock, and Costco is a drunkard, and everybody knows when you're drunk, time goes faster.
Are you implying that Costco did this on accident?
More than likely.
No,
Costco does everything by accident.
He confirms it later. He did not do this on accident.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're being too kind to Costco here.
Put it in the Hairbrain Theories on our Discord, okay?
I feel like Costco is the kind of person that does things and then retroactively makes up things to make sense.
I think
it's like, oh yeah, no, we're just going to do the charge now, and then later he's just like, yeah, I did that on purpose because
not in this case.
No, not this Costco. No, I think
really, really.
Yeah, dude. How many times have you read Red Country?
Hey,
this man.
Listen. Hey, George, you're gonna have to put this in Hairbrain Theories. We've been doing this a little while now. We gotta keep going. Hairbrain Theories, and let the Discord decide.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can see it now. George's new theory. Costco is in a bumbling.
Has never done anything wrong.
Time. Okay.
Said he's not doing anything wrong. I just think he's an asshole.
Yeah, but we're saying he's an intentional asshole. He's doing this on purpose. He's lying to Safine and Temple just to shut him up. And you're saying that he does it kind of like, whatever. Okay. He says he does it to teach Temple and Safine a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Funny. Okay. So anyway, Shield goes for his sword. Temple hits him. They fight for it. And basically, Safine was able to grab Shield's sword while Temple and Shield are fighting. And, he kills Shield for Temple. And he saw... Well, actually, basically, Shield and Denard, which is the farmer, they die, right? After they get Shield's sword, and Safine is able to basically kill him, right?
Yeah.
And then... Safine kind of drops to his knees and he says, we were going to save people. And there's blood on his lip.
Such a hard line.
Yeah. And then...
We were going to do some good.
Yeah, and Temple's like, what the fuck? And he's grabbing at Safine, and he realized that the knife he gave to the farmer is buried in Safine's ribs.
A classic. It's exactly what he needed to hear. It's just that he was killed by his own little tiny knife.
Yeah. The farmer, the dog is still barking. The woman with the flatbow is gone. The sound of the hooves have got louder, and now the horse, everyone's coming in slowly, and the boy is slowly backing away. The farmer's son, it looks like. And he's dragging.
And then they see Joubert, and Joubert is, if anything, a harbinger of destruction.
Yeah, because as the boy is trying to run away, and I forgot to point out, the kid has like a lame leg or something, so he's just dragging it, and then Joubert basically fucking swings and slashes him in the shoulder, and the kid goes down. And more people are running, more horsemen screaming, and again, they should have had an hour. That comes up, and Temple kneels beside Safine, but he could tell that Safine is dead at this point, and poor Safine. And the town is basically in chaos. Remember, this is not a big town at all. This is like maybe 8 buildings, and not big buildings, like shacks, if anything. And Temple goes towards the boy. And he grabs Shield's sword, and the boy is whispering, help me. And Temple says, no. And he says, shut your fucking mouth. Temple is mad. He pokes the kid a little bit, and then Casca kind of comes up out of nowhere, and he's like, Temple, are you all right? You're bleeding. And then Temple says, Safine is dead. And then Casca goes, oh, why do the fates always take the best of us? But Casca's not really paying attention. He's more paying attention to apparently some money that's in the mud. Apparently this came out of like the kid's satchel that he had.
I love mud money.
Mud money. And he's smiling and everything. He gets down from his horse. Friendly helps him down. And there are more coins inside the satchel because Friendly is, looking inside it. And so Casca goes to the boy and he asks him, where did this money come from? And the kid says that they went on a raid and it all went wrong. And I want to know, what happened in this raid, right? Like, where was this raid, and stuff. And that only 4 of them made it back. Go ahead.
Sorry, I also do want to make the reference that maybe this is a slight reference to Blood Meridian, because the main character in that book is called The Kid.
Yeah, The Kid.
And they do a lot of raids.
Well, they do more.
So maybe this is a sort of a oblique reference. I don't know. Because that is also a Western as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just read Blood Meridian. I don't think this kid is a reference to that, but I think there are other references to Blood Meridian. I think, like, if anything, the roving band of marauders that the kid is a part of, right? Just like sacking towns or just killing groups of people. That's really Casca and these guys,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So anyway, the kid, he says that only 4 of them made it back, and they had 24 horses to trade. They traded a man named Gregor Cantless bought them off of us up in Grier.
Gregor Conscious? Is that what he said?
Gregor Cantless. Interesting. And so he says, and then, Casca's attention is obviously on this money. And he goes, what sort of man is this guy? A rebel? The kid says no, that he had nice clothes, a crazy-eyed Northman with him, just took the horses and he paid with those coins. And he didn't say where he got the coins, but he definitely wasn't one of the rebels.
Just want to point out as well, that's another typical British name. It's Grayer. Because it's grey,
Oh, I said Grier.
It's Grayer.
Grayer. Oh, Grayer. Interesting. Okay.
Because everywhere in the UK is grey, so.
Nice. Nice.
That's silly, but okay, I'm on board with you.
Yeah. So apparently, when the kid says that, the Cantless is definitely not one of the rebels, Casca goes, well, that answer is not going to make Inquisitor Lorson happy. And he gives a nod so gentle that you couldn't even really tell he gave a nod.
Not even George could tell.
Yeah, apparently. And so this is where Friendly put his hands around the boy's neck. And that dog, so obviously that kid dying.
And we know Friendly is a stone cold killer, so here we go.
Yeah, and the dog is still barking, and Temple kind of just mutters to himself that, somebody should stop him in terms of like the general chaos going around. And Casca goes, how? I'm a general, not a god, and many generals get mixed up on that point, but I was cured of that misapprehension long ago. The men are upset. Like a flood, it's safer to wash with the current than try to dam it up. If they don't have a channel for their anger, why it could flow anywhere, even over me. And he looks at Temple. He says, and it's not as though any of this was my fault, is it? And this is where he tells Temple, I know you meant well, but that's how it is with good intentions. Hopefully we've all learned the lesson here today. I about indulging you, you about indulging yourself.
Unfortunately, that is the way it goes with war,
Oh, yeah.
You get, many memoirs from many, many, many generals and great statesmen and things like that say the exact same thing. Once somebody has the bloodlust in them, there's not much you can do until it's spent. which is terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are awful.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And he drinks from his flask, and Temple's like, "You're drinking again?" He goes, "You fuss too much." And Nip never hurt anybody.
Oh.
And I like how Inquisitor Lorson comes up and he's like, "I hold you responsible for this debacle." And he goes, there's a little bit of a, back and forth here, nothing too crazy. And then he kind of goes, "Anyway," he goes, "the boy was able to tell us something before he died." And he says, "Imperial coins given to these rebels by a man called Gregor Cantless in Greyer.
Small detail, Jeff. Whenever he goes, Baya, he doesn't remember the man's name. And Friendly goes, Gregor Countless. But that's great because countless sounds like countless. It's another kind of thing. I always thought that was silly as fuck.
Countless. That was good.
Countless. I love that. It's actually pretty good. And so then Lorson's like, "Wait a minute, are you saying that the rebels have Imperial funding?" Pike was very clear that we avoid any entanglements with the Empire. But Casca apparently knows his history. He goes, no, look at this coin. Emperor Ostus II, he died some 1,400 years ago. So these are ancient coins. So maybe the rebels had just stumbled upon a tomb. So with that, it's like... What happened?
That might come up later.
Yeah. And so he says rebellion costs money, food, clothes, weapons, shelters. So the point stands. You follow the money, you find its leaders. Greyer appears on Pike's list anyway, right? And perhaps this Cant list can lead us to this Contus of yours. And Lorson's like, Contus.
Yes. Yes.
I love how Costco never says Contus properly. He's just always trying to find different ways to say it wrong.
And so then, Lorson's like, very well, for now we'll follow the money. And then he yells to his practicals to search the corpses for tattoos and try to find me one of the rebels that are still alive. And apparently, at this point, the town, is basically burning. And Casca is taking the opportunity to pontificate to Swarbrick that I share your distaste for this, believe me. I have been closely involved in the burning of some of the world's most ancient and beautiful cities. You should have seen April in flames. It lit the sky for miles. April is Rogan's seat, right?
No, that's Osprey.
Oh, Osprey. What was April?
April is one of the cities that is close to Talon's.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
One of the ones that betrayed well, not betrayed, but turned their back.
It was one of the ones that they him and Bonza sacked when they were with the Thousand Swords. Gotcha.
Okay. But Swarbrick is just like, Jesus Christ, this is like chaos. And we're seeing Joubert dragging corpses into a line and expressionlessly cutting their heads off. And I think this is some real subtle foreshadowing towards the end when it comes to heads and Joubert. And this is the part where Costco goes, severed heads never go out of fashion.
He said that many times.
Yeah.
I think he said that in Before They Hang, in Best I've Called and now, which is the rule of three. Here we go. This is the third one.
He's doing it.
And Lorson, he complains how much of a waste this is, because this land could be really nice with some proper management, firm governance, techniques in agriculture, blah blah blah.
Of course.
And he says they have a threshing machine now in Midderland which can do in a day with one operator what used to take a dozen peasants a week. And then Temple would ask them, like, what do the 11 do? And this is where
find other employment.
And
that is excellent foreshadowing for the next series.
And I want to correct myself. That wasn't Lorson that said it. It was a practical that said this.
Yes.
Oh, actually, no. It was Lorson that said what a waste, but it was the practical that said find other employment. My bad.
Yes, exactly.
My bad. So Casca is telling, Brachio and the other officers that, round up your men. We have an hour. We're heading out to Greyer and Gregor Cantless. And Temple at this point he's closing his eye. He's basically sick to his stomach, right? He hardly breathe after what's going on. And Casca kind of can see this, I guess. And he says, we brought your horse down And if you want my advice, keep busy. Put this place at your back as swiftly as possible. And Temple asks him, like, how do I forget this? And he says, well, that's too much to ask. The trick is learning to just not care.
Oh,
And
dear.
yeah. And then Temple's like, I have to bury Safine. So
it's like, yes, I suppose so, but quickly.
yeah, we have daylight and not a moment to waste. And so Temple turns around and, Friendly gives him a shovel and he puts Safine on the horse. It took some effort, but he put him on the horse and he led the horse out to.
I would just like to point out as well, you don't dig ground with a shovel, you use a spade. I just, basic thing there.
Oh, was that bothering you?
Yeah, it is. It really does bother me that a spade is never mentioned, but shovels are.
I think that's just a like a trope thing that Joe doesn't ever think about. But it's a good point. I never thought about that.
Burmy comes up to him as he's leading the horse, and he's asking him, "Are you all right?" And his concern made Temple want to cry. And he says, "I'm not hurt, but Safine is dead." And he says to himself that there was justice. Sarcastically, clearly, and Burmy calls him calls after him. He says, like, "Are you sure you're okay?" And Temple just says, "Never better." And he led the horse out of town, off the track, right, which is not a big track at all. And he gets to a river, and he follows the river upstream until he found a pleasant enough spot, right. And then he takes Safine's body off the horse and rolls it over onto his back. And he just tosses the shovel into his river. And he says, "I'm sorry." He apologizes. And he gets on the saddle. And he says to himself that Safine would not have cared where he was laid out or how. If there was a God, he was with him now, probably demanding to know why he had so conspicuously failed as yet to put the world to rights. And Casca had said they were going to go north and east. So Temple turned his horse towards the west and gave it his heels. Away from the greasy pall of smoke rising from the ruins of Averstock, away from the company of the Gracious Hand, away from Dimbic and Brachio and Joubert, away from Inquisitor Lorson and his righteous mission. He had no destination in mind anywhere but with Nakomo Casca. And that is the end of that chapter. Boys, how do you rate it?
It's an incredibly fucking depressing chapter. Mm-hmm. Probably the most depressing chapter.
What?
What? we say the most.
That is not the first time you said that.
There are heights. There are really, really, really good heights and lows in this book, and they're all within the first act.
What?
I say they're not all within the first act, but there are a lot of them are in the first act.
Some of the best ones.
I'm gonna give this one a 7 because it's just so inevitable. From the first page exactly what is going to happen. But Temple doesn't. Mm-hmm. And because Temple doesn't, and we're there with him throughout the ride and just going along with it, it's just miserable. I fucking hate it. And for that, I'm going to give it a 7.
Harrison?
I am gonna give it also 7. I don't feel exactly the same way. I just think there's so many little elements here. Like there's notes. I think that the shock that Temple is in is done really well. Where everything's just happening around him. This poor little town just getting absolutely fucked, for basically no reason at all. It's tragic the fact that Safine dies, which I have a theory. We'll talk about here in a minute with Safine. Mm-hmm. And all this happens and stuff, and it's a perfect setup for somebody like Temple to have. He's had enough, and that's a good sign, because like to us, like you said, George, like to us it's like, oh, of course, blah 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 blah. This is so unreasonable. But to somebody like Temple inside the First Law universe, or somebody to say, you know what, no, I've had enough, even if it's way too late, is more than most of the characters even do. So props to him for that.
Jeffrey.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it an 8 and a knuckle. I think it's a very, very good chapter. It's excellent. It's long. There's a lot of details. It's a lot that's happening. We get, instances of comedy that, that's interspersing this very tense situation. Like you said, from the beginning, you kind of like, okay, this is where it's going to lead. But we kind of feel like, I mean, when does it ever really work out, right? When does it ever work out where Safine convinces the rebels to give up and they go on their merry way and everything's okay? Never works out. And
No.
And we have Casca,
It almost does though. They almost give up,
Almost, yeah. But it's all about timing. It's about those just like brief moments where everything changes. Yeah, I mean, Safine dying is, it's heartbreaking for us because he is truly the best man in the company, and now he's gone.
Yeah,
it breaks Temple's heart. We see concern from Burmy. He's part of the trio there. We see Casca really just being an ultimate degenerate because like. Say what you want. In previous instances with the Casca, it was always like, you scallywag,
Oh yeah, you lovable rogue.
Rogue. But now with this stuff, like people are legitimately just straight up dying, and it doesn't matter who. It could be anybody, but they're just straight up dying. And so, yeah, we see Swarbrick being really like, this is not exactly what I thought it was gonna be, but okay. Yeah. So Aiden and the Knuckle for me.
But you're absolutely right that really goes to show how good Joe is at writing characters. That this same character that is basically the same character that we've seen in previous books, who was lovable, and who was just a lovable rogue scallywag kind of fucking pirate type, is now absolutely detestable,
right?
From a completely different perspective.
He's on his way to being detestable. Really is. We haven't seen him at the worst just yet.
Yeah, and that's what makes it even worse.
Oh boy. But yeah, so that's the end of that chapter read through, and we'll go right on to our character spot. Boys, who else are we gonna spotlight but dear old
Safine?
Harrison, it seemed like you wanted to talk specifically.
Yes, so Safine is a rare character in the Herschel series where he's like, I want to do good. But more importantly, Safine implies that he's done some really fucked up shit in his past, and he's actually trying to atone. And he's got like this, Kadia's standpoint of being like, I need to go where I'm most needed. This very kind of classical Messiah-esque, it doesn't matter who is out there. It doesn't matter if you like God or not. He's there. I'm going to show you that love. And it's very sweet. But I also have the feeling that whenever he is talking, whenever he goes down here, Safine it's not tragic at all, really. Because if Safine realized, hang on. If Safine realized that he saved Temple in a way, he would have found it worth it, I think. So to me, I don't think it's tragic in that way.
No, it's totally tragic. When his last words were, "We were gonna do some good."
It is tragic in that way. But if Safine knew that Temple was just gonna run off, he would be so proud. I'm not gonna get into spoilers, but
absolutely from an author's point of view, absolutely I can see that. But from Safine's point of view, especially because we get to see Safine's point of view in The Best Man in the chapter, where he's like, I fought first for survival and first for my country, and then for my family, and then for my friends, and then for money, and now what?
Yeah.
He's just going on this downward spiral, and he has just gotten to rock bottom in a place where there's no escape. And the only way that he can get out is to die.
Yeah, that is sad.
What a fucking miserable existence.
Nah, it's not miserable because he actually lived for something, George. Unlike most people.
You say that, but what did he live for? To survive?
No. You don't live to survive. What are you talking about?
No, I don't, but he did.
He lived George, he lived to do good.
He tried.
He did more good than most people.
He tried his best. He
did way more than most people. And the fact that he made the effort is better than most people. So
and he actually did have good intentions.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is
It
a
is
lot, like
more
you say,
than
is a
most people.
lot more that most people have. I mean, I can't think of another character in this series that actually had genuine selfless intention. Can you?
No, I don't think so.
Kadia?
Well, maybe
Cardia.
Nadia,
Yeah.
who is more successful at it.
But Cardia is religious. So
Safi's religious as fuck.
That's it. That's Joe's message here. Religion will
He's
save.
praying right at the very beginning.
But yeah, Sufin is the upstanding moral character, and we'll never see his like again, will we?
No. Well, we kind of will. We'll see.
Sufin, we barely knew ye.
Barely knew ye. Yeah. Poor guy.
Good guy though.
Great guy.
Good guy. Great guy.
He was part of a vicious band of mercenaries. Great guy though. Great guy.
Great guy. He probably did horrible murders.
Oh, probably.
Great guy though.
Okay. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support means oh so much.
Join us next week as we cover New Lives and The Rugged Outdoorsman.
And make sure you follow us on all of our social media. Take a look at the website and email us at circleoftheworldpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcast from. And please make sure to rate and review us. Thank you all again for listening.
It is God who does the fucking